Good morning and welcome to the studio. We are live from our Dungarvan studio. Eamon Quinlan, Fianna Fáil councillor. First time in the studio, Eamon.
Yeah, it's different.
You're west of Lemmy Bryan. How does it feel, huh?
Like I'm on borrowed time.
Appreciate you coming down to us this morning because we're going to talk to yourself and hopefully Damien Gagan. If Damien Gagan turns up, he's due to be here at 5 to 10. So Damien, if you're out there, get your car parked and get up here quickly because we want to hear Fine Gael's view about the fiasco that is the commemorations for the RIC. And Eamon has come down from the city to talk to us about it. We'll be looking for your views and your comments as well. 083 333 975. Couple of things coming up in the programme. Going to be talking to Shane McIntyre about the fishing. Going to be talking about farming. We've got the latest on the Irish Hospital Consultants' views regarding the hospital waiting lists and also the emergency departments. Going to be talking to Jerry O'Connor about retail in Dungarvan and some good reports over the Christmas that the vouchers that were being sold, that were being used by retailers and by shoppers in Dungarvan have exceeded expectations. We will have details on that. Also going to be talking to Anne-Marie Byrne, whose daughter Emily received a liver transplant a year ago, and to Michelle Ryan, the Ballymacarbery forward to retirement from inter-county football, 19 years an inter-county footballer. Now, just to keep an ear out, we are this week on WLR giving out, in conjunction with Harvey Travel and Cork Airport, we are giving out 4 sensational sunshine holidays to Lanzarote, Portugal, Spain, and a Mediterranean cruise. So that's for the month of January. We're going to give away one of those holidays this week. 4 holidays to be won over 4 weeks. So you have to have a listen out. It might be on the show today. We're looking at a song that might be on the show today. And the song could be on one of the other shows. It's The Kinks. Are you into The Kinks, Eamon? Sunny Afternoon by The Kinks. So have a listen. If you hear that song being played on this programme, just text 083 333 975 and the word you have to text is holiday. So text the word holiday to 083 333 975 and basically one lucky daily qualifier will go through to Friday's final for the Drive Time show. Now, we are going to start with Eamon Quinlan. Eamon, come into us there. You're a Fianna Fáil councillor based in Waterford City. Thank you very much for coming down to Dungarvan to us today. Fergal Keane writes in the Irish Times today. Fergal Keane, as you know, is a well-respected journalist of national and international repute. The RIC row threatens to drag us into a dangerous place. My great-grandfather, he says, Patrick Hassett, was an RIC man from County Clare. 3 of his brothers also joined the force. They grew up on a small farm in Knockaneen outside Ennis. Other relatives went to America and England to escape poverty. By the late 19th century, Patrick was reaching the end of his career. He was a sergeant based in Ardmore in County Waterford. He was once described by the Examiner as a man of rare coolness and self-possession. He was a member of the RIC. His namesake Paddy joined the IRA in Cork City during the War of Independence. What do you think about all this?
Well, I suppose if I could add to the conversation that's been going on nationally for the last couple of years, I mean, the RIC existed for over a century, basically. So, I mean, it's a complex organisation. I don't doubt that many fine people who are interested in promoting law and order joined the RIC. As we can see from the revolutionary period, when the RIC, which was set up as a paramilitary organisation whose primary objective was to maintain the political union and enforce the political union between Ireland and the wider UK, that when that became their primary and dominant role, when the Irish people had expressed a will through the ballot box for independence, that large numbers of the RIC quit the RIC. Many then went on to aid the revolutionary forces at the time, and because of that manpower drain, people who would then become known as the Black and Tans were drafted into a system. It's a very complex relationship. What I heard this morning on News Talk I thought was very poignant, that we should remember all of our history, but we don't necessarily commemorate all of our history. 2 things, I suppose, that I would take issue with in the last 24 hours of this national conversation has been the position taken by the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar and the Minister for Justice Charlie Flanagan through the Taoiseach's tweets yesterday around lunchtime, and then Charlie Flanagan's interview this morning, that by not honouring the RIC, we are in somehow dishonouring people with a unionist tradition on the island of Ireland, and that for reconciliation we need to incorporate groups like this. that's a deeply flawed point that they're taking on. Just because someone voted to maintain the union in 1918 could have been for many reasons. They could have been working the docks in Waterford City and wanted to keep exporting to the wider UK. They could have been a farmer in West Waterford, also sending exports. The fact that there wasn't an overall majority for independence in 1916, but only several years later there was because a lot of people who were voting to maintain the union changed their mind. And I think a lot of people acknowledged at the time and since that it was the actions of the security apparatus and the security forces in what they were instructed to do by Westminster and what they committed in Ireland was a major force driving people to change their views on a political union. So therefore, I've no issue with many royal societies, whether it be the academic societies, sporting clubs, and the unionist tradition. But I think it's highly offensive to someone who happens to come from a unionist tradition that they somehow have to find common purpose with the atrocities committed during the revolutionary period, the burning of Cork, Balbriggan, the other such events. These things, unionists should not have to wear these as part of their tradition. That has nothing to do with them. Just because I vote for a Republican Party does not mean I'm somehow responsible for any atrocities that are committed around the wider country.
Okay. Damien Gagan, are you on the line?
I am, Damien, yeah.
Good morning. Bit of confusion there. I think you thought we were going to be...
I thought it was after 11 o'clock news. We were going to be on the morning side about that.
No.
Communication.
You're okay. Happy New Year and all that jazz. Thank you very much. Your leader made a complete dog's dinner of this, and Charlie Flanagan should resign, some people are saying.
I don't think he should resign, but I do agree with the premise that there has been a cock-up made, that's for sure. I think the right thing to do was to call off the commemoration that was planned for next week in Dublin Castle. I think that entire period and the commemoration for the RIC shouldn't have been planned, shouldn't go ahead. It's too complex, it's too nuanced. It's the link between the RIC and the Black and Tans is just too strong in order to just come along and you can't come along and just separate both of them. That's the reality of it. And I think the backlash was seen over the last couple of days. I think it reflects that as well. I personally made contact with the Taoiseach yesterday and spoke to him on it. It called for it to be cancelled and not to go ahead. He listened to what I had to say. I think he was listening to the grassroots of the party as well. And I was glad yesterday evening when I heard that the commemoration was cancelled.
But it should never have gone ahead in the first place. Like, was this an arrogant Fine Gael decision to go ahead with this without consultation? We've heard Charlie Flanagan talk about, we're now going to consult people, and it is very nuanced. This should have been done 6 months ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
There
was an expert group set up, and we're looking at the whole bit of commemorations, and there were, and I actually think myself with this entire decade of commemorations, I mean, you can overdo it when it comes to commemorations. I'm going to have one every 5 minutes for every single organisation.
Just hang on a second there.
Every event.
Just hang on a second there, Damien. Your line is a little bit bad. Just make sure you get in a good line there, in a good area. Eamon just wants to come in there in a second, just while you reposition yourself there. Eamon.
Yeah, if I could just make the point, and I suppose it's been flogged to death in the last 24 hours, when you had Diarmuid Ferriter and the rest of the expert advisor group have come out and have publicly put their reputations on the line to say, no, our recommendation to government was not to hold this commemoration. It was perhaps to honour it in a satisfactory way, such as a series of lectures so that the Irish people could get to know the RIC and what they've done. So, Diarmuid Ferriter was clear that they were being used as a mud, essentially being pinned. And what I would point out, and it hasn't been talked about much in the national media in the last couple of days, but we have a situation now where the Minister for Justice attempted to use the state security apparatus on Garda Síochána for an event. He basically said he was doing this on the recommendation of an expert advisory group. That group is now saying that the Minister for Justice, in using the state security forces, is misleading the public as a rationale for what he did.
What do you got to say to that, Damien Gagan, Fine Gael councillor here in Dungarvan?
I think Diarmuid Ferriter, the historian that was part of that expert group, actually was splitting hairs yesterday on it, because if you do look at the recommendation that group made, they did say that there should be a standalone event to commemorate the RIC. That's what they actually said. And I think yesterday evening...
he didn't talk about... He didn't talk... Let's get this right now, and Damien, he didn't talk about a state event where it's a state public event supported by the state apparatus, if you want to put it like that. They suggested some kind of as Eamon says, a discussion, a kind of a historical discussion.
They suggested an event. They suggested an event.
Yeah,
they didn't go into the detail of whether it should be a symposium or a seminar or a discussion of academics sitting
the
around
document
the
that
table.
was published specified.
That's the reality of it. I think, my point is valid. I think Dermot Ferreter is splitting hairs.
Dermot Ferreter is not out on a limb here. He's being backed up by the wider expert advisory group. What the document said was that there should be an appropriate event held, and that in the committee discussions that was attended by multiple parties such as Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil and others, it was trashed out that it would be something like a lecture. No one knew that this state commemoration was going to happen until the state decided it was going to go forward with a state commemoration. The government proceeded with this on a solo run. It only came to light in the last several days when, I suppose, Cathal Crowe, Fianna Fáil Mayor Clare, was the first to raise it and say that he was not going to attend. And unfortunately, the Minister for Justice has been forced into an embarrassing U-turn.
Okay, the main word there, Damien Geoghegan, is appropriate. Fine Gael and Charlie Flanagan, and obviously with the go-ahead of the Taoiseach, decided it would be appropriate to have this big event, this public commemoration. A complete and utter misjudging not only of a political situation, but a reappraisal and a revision of history, which is not appropriate in considering, as you said earlier, the nuances that are there. So you seem to be trying to have in your cake and eat it here. You seem to be trying to...
No, I agree. It is inappropriate. It is inappropriate.
Why did they go ahead with it then?
But I do think that... But it's not going ahead. That's the point I'm making.
But it would have gone ahead only...
It
would have gone ahead only for the people giving out about it. Can I just ask you again, Damien Geoghegan, was this, and I asked you this 5 minutes ago, why did Charlie Flanagan, why did the government, why did your party want to go ahead with this? Was it arrogance?
I wouldn't say it was arrogance, no. I think Charlie Flanagan and the government were probably, I would say, maybe going out on a limb to be seen to be inclusive, and they made a cock-up of it. I mean, that's as simple as that. The reality is there's a commemoration for the past 7 or 8 years now in Dublin every year, run by former members of the Garda Síochána. I think it's called the Harp Society, and they have an event every year for the RIC, and it passes without comment. I think, that's appropriate. Leave that occur every year. But the fact that it was a state event, there was too much bad feeling there in relation to the link between the Black and Tans and the RIC, and I think it was inappropriate, and the government did make a cock-up, absolutely, and I'm glad that it has been cancelled.
Okay. It should be pointed out, though, that as of this morning when the Minister for Justice was on with Pat Kenny, that the Fine Gael party line between the Taoiseach and the Minister for Justice is still that it was right what they did. They only called it off because of the mass hysteria, as he referred to it, from the rest of the public, and that he still wishes to have some form of a commemoration going forward. So the Fine Gael line can't be, and I take Damien's bona fides that he wasn't a part of it, he disagrees with it, but his party's line is still that this should go ahead at a later date.
What have you got to say to that, Damien Geoghegan?
I think it's fair to say now that particular commemoration is dead in the water. I don't think we'll see that being.
Well, your Minister for Justice, your Minister for Justice said this morning.
I think that's maybe the Minister for Justice trying to save face a little bit. That happens in politics, but I think it's fair to say that we won't see this.
So are you saying he's telling lies?
On the agenda. I'm not saying he's telling lies. I'm just saying that I don't see this idea of commemoration coming back on the agenda again. I just don't see it happening.
Okay, I've got to ask both of you. Was this an outrage that surprised you, Eamon Quinlan, in the sense that the government making a cock-up, as Damien Geoghegan says, but social media taking the front on this, and radio stations like ourselves, the response we had yesterday, forcing the government to do something to make a change? Like, this was unprecedented. 24 hours. A massive turnaround. Very
much so. I mean, I was talking to numerous people I know who are not active in politics, who are with friends who have no political leanings, who throw out, do you know the state, the government are looking to commemorate the RIC, Black and Tans. Instantly there was uproar, but they hit a nerve. They didn't see it coming. I think it's a bit shocking that they didn't see it coming. And in fairness, it does show the power of social media, but it was a naturally undercurrent that the Irish people have a profound understanding of their own history, both locally, nationally, and the RIC, unfortunately, and what they did not play a positive role in that.
Damien Geoghegan, what about the Minister for Justice saying that there were sinister elements at work on social media and otherwise? In other words, implying that Republicans, in the broader course of things, were basically stirring this up and doing an anti-government kind of approach to things. Do you think there's sinister forces at work, or is that him again trying to save face?
I don't. I think he was maybe just referring to maybe the more extreme comments that would have been passed on social media. But the overwhelming majority of people, and I think Eamon Quinlan is right there, I mean, it just lies below the surface, in Irish people what occurred during that entire period. And I think what we saw over the last 48 to 72 hours was that coming to the surface again. And I think we're unique as a country really in Europe in the sense that we're divided along civil war lines basically. We don't have a left and right divide, which to me is regrettable. But I mean, and as long as we do have that kind of civil war divide in our politics, and it exists and very clearly exists, well, it's just under the surface. That's all it is. And
well, as a centrist, I'm not really concerned that there's not a left-right divide in this country. But I'd just like to point out that in this one interview, Damien Geoghegan, who is a general election candidate for Fine Gael, has twice expressed not having confidence in the Minister for Justice for his actions in making a mess of this and apparently putting out what we might call misinterpretations to the Irish public. We're not calling them lies. That's twice now a general election candidate has expressed less than his full confidence in the Minister for Justice.
Damien Geoghegan, he's getting a right dig in at you there because obviously there's an election coming up. Is this electioneering?
Eamon is twisting. Eamon is twisting what I'm saying now.
He's not. I heard you say it as well.
Eamon has his eye at there close to us.
He's not twisting any words.
Fall rather than myself here now. I'm just calling it as I see it regarding Charles Hannigan and what happened over the last 2 hours. But the notion that I don't have confidence in that's I think that's taken it a bit too far now as to what I said this morning.
Is this going to be an issue on the doorsteps in a month's time? If you're canvassing Damien Geoghegan, people might be mentioning the black and tans.
I would say there's a very awful lot of issues on the doorsteps. I think that possibly be one issue, yeah, for sure, with some people, and I think with others it could be different issues: health, education, investment, the economy, jobs.
I hope it comes up for us because all I need to say is we bet him once and we bet him again.
I don't want to go into too many other things in the papers. Dungarvan Observer, Dungarvan Leader, big things. Quick mention. Fine Gael, it's been reported in the Leader, are going to be asking Liam Brazel to stand in the general election for Fine Gael. Your thoughts, Damien Geoghegan?
I have no real input in relation to that at the moment. I think it's something that that's between Liam Brazel and party headquarters. I haven't seen the local papers this morning, so
would you be against it?
I'm a candidate. I'm out there working, standing on my record, trying to get myself elected.
Not answering the question. Would you be against it?
Would I be against Liam Brazel standing? I don't think it would make sense to have Liam Brazel and myself on the party ticket here in West Waterford. We'd be too close to one another.
So obviously I don't want to put words in your mouth, just like you said with Eamon. You are against it.
I just don't think it would make sense.
Damien Geoghegan, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Yeah.
Eamon Quinlan, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Damien.
We are back just after this. Now, welcome back. We will take more of your texts and comments in a few minutes. Damien, I think the whole debacle just shows how out of touch the government is with the public, says Dawn in Tremor. Jim has said, I'm one of the people who don't want this commemorative event to ever happen. My grandmother was put up against the wall of her cottage at Abbeyside along with their children, pistol whipped as the black and tans looked for information on my grandfather but didn't get it. I don't want our country to commemorate the tans or anyone who had anything to do with it. That is from Jim. I'm going to come back to more of your texts and comments in a few minutes. Firstly, I had a quick chat a few minutes ago with Shane McIntyre, lobster and crab fisherman who works out at Dunmore East. He is participating in the search for lost fisherman Willie Whelan. He's going to the funeral of Joe Sinnott at 12 o'clock. He featured in Golfin a Shnalínta, a documentary on T.G. Cahir, which is on tonight. Shane McIntyre, I had a quick chat with him just a few minutes ago.
How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks, Shane. Shane, you're up in your ass in the boatyard at the minute, getting a bit of work done on the boat, are you?
Oh, yeah, just a bit of maintenance and a bit of powder and paint.
Tell me, what do you fish?
We fished mostly brown crab and lobster.
And tell us about the boat.
Oh, she's an 11-metre catamaran that was purposely built in 2003 by myself through a kind of whitefish renewal program. We got grants to build the boat, and I have her ever since. And
what's her name?
Her name is the Due East.
Lovely. There's a programme on tonight on T.G. Cahir, Gaofa Shnalínta, telling the story of Ireland's fishing communities, Dunmore East and Castletownbere. It's just horrendous for a programme to be going out at any time, to be going out at the present, makes it all the more poignant considering what's happened the last few days. You knew Joe and Willie very well, did you?
I did indeed. I know Joe since the middle 80s, I suppose, 87. I started fishing in Dunmore in 1986 myself. And a couple of years, 1987, I suppose, Joe worked on one of the boats we used to pair fish with Paris at the time, and Jesus, yeah. And Willie then, going a few years later when I got my own boats and we were started working pots, gill nets, and Willie was on the beamers with his two brothers, and they started scallop fishing, and we got to know each other very well through that, kind of trying to work with each other in different areas of ground, and not to be in each other's way, and just trying to make a living. Both of us make a living from the same area of ground.
Yeah.
He's a very, very nice man, wicked nice man altogether.
And still you'd be having the crack, I presume, a bit of competition, a bit of...
Oh, yeah, banter was a big thing. Banter was a big thing there. He fished in bigger boats with his brothers, and then he came down into his own small boat. Then he was working with us in the smaller boats, and we'd be kind of, he'd be wanting to know, can he get into fish the bit of ground we were fishing, and we try and make room for him, or you'd be trying to cooperate with each other as much as you can without falling out with each other. Put it that way, there was never animosity between any of us, really, to be honest.
Yeah, because you're all cut off the same cloth in the sense that fishing.
That's correct.
Fishing it's part of who you are.
Part of who and what we are. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So we used to work then that we keep certain areas of ground we wouldn't fish because they would be there or Willie'd be there. More so Willie now. There was only one real small scallop at the time, that would work in handy where we were working there a couple of years ago. And if he was moving on out of that area, then he'd call me or call some of the other lads and say he was finishing that area, that we could go in there and fish there then and make a bit of room somewhere else for him, or vice versa. We could be out in an area before he comes out and he'd stay away from us, and that's how we worked.
Another fisherman out of Crook, he told me, he said, Joe Sinnott, he was a big horse of a man.
Big horse of a man, yeah. Yes, he was, yeah.
Gentle giant as well,
nice.
Two nice men.
Wicked nice man. Yeah. I know Joe a lot longer now. I know Joe a long time.
And would do you a good turn?
No bother in the world whatsoever. He even going over the years, he would have been skippering boats at the same job he was at himself there now. And you'd ring up Joe, and it'd be the same thing. It'd be not a bother, lad, or call me back in an hour or whatever. He was always, they'd always make things simple for you, if it all could be But geez, I was only a chap, 17, 18, 19, I suppose, when I met Joe first. And they wouldn't put you wrong, you were starting fishing, and they never put you wrong, So
it's just horrendous to think of two men gone and two men that you know so well. I've asked this of a lot of fishermen over the years. I wrote the book after the pair, Charles, as well, The Souls of the Sea. Does it make you think?
Sure, look, it does. You're always thinking, but Jesus, it's always summer. There's always some parts of the coast at some time of the year, and you'd be wondering why do you bother? Why? But sure, look, the way I look at it is I could get knocked down crossing the road. It's the same thing as the job. We go to do it. We respect the sea. We know the dangers of the sea. We don't abuse the sea. So you'd be just kind of hoping in the back of your mind that the sea won't do you any harm. So,
and it's
for all the
it's hard work, and obviously there's a sense of freedom as well when you're out there on a nice sunny day, or even on a bad day and you're rolling with the waves. You're just a sense of exhilaration, maybe.
Yeah, it's always a challenge, no matter what. That's the one thing about that job. There's no 2 days the same. There's always some little thing, and as the man said years ago about pot fishing, no matter what you do, there's always something in a pot. It could be a shell, it could be a crab, it could be anything, an empty clamshell or anything. There's always something. It's not a boring, monotonous job. I don't think, anyway. And when you do come on good fishing, then you really get a bit of gusto, and you know, you come home with a good trip, and you're going to provide for the family, and you can buy things and you can do things, and like especially being a boat owner, all the lads that fish with me now are all friends of mine. Like, so you know, there's a great sense of achievement when you can provide for three other families. Like,
yeah, and if you thought about the potential consequences all the time, you wouldn't go out at all. You wouldn't go to sea. No, you couldn't. No. You just have to get on with it.
Yeah, I'm afraid of heights. I don't go up in heights, like, realistically speaking. So I'm not afraid of the sea. I respect it. I know tragedies happen, and that's the unfortunate side of the job. That's something that I don't think you will ever change because it's the sea. And you can make your boats safe. And Jesus, they are, like, nearly all the boats in the fleet now. Probably all the boats in the fleet are safe.
Yeah.
And you don't think of the dangers only in bad weather. But sure, it wasn't bad the other night. Like, you know what I mean?
No.
I don't know what happened. People just don't know what happens until they go down and see the boat now, and maybe something which was catastrophic, whatever happened anyway, because it was so fast.
And sometimes accidents will happen when the weather is not bad, because people, for different reasons, may be thinking about different things. You just don't know.
Correct. Yeah.
Happens for different reasons. And
times, no.
Unfortunately, Shane, you have to drive past that memorial wall every day going down to work, and there's going to be 2 more names put on it now in March.
Correct. And there's some of the names there that I know going back to 30 years or more now since I started in Dunmore. Like, Jesus, a lot of fellas. But all over the country, you know. I mean, there was a big disaster out in America there, out in Alaska. Boat went down with 5 men. 2 were saved, 5 went missing. Only here after Christmas, like, so it's everywhere, you know. It's I don't know. You can never say what's going to happen at sea. That's one thing for certain, sure.
And like, of those names, as you're saying, so many different names over the years, in terms of Powerses, in terms of the pair Charles lads, in terms of the Bulgers, in terms of Paddy Mason, in terms of so many different names over the years.
Yeah.
I presume you just have to drive past the wall and concentrate on the job, is it?
Oh, you do, yeah. There's times now you'd stop there at different times, and you'd go over and you'd have a look and you'd say hello. Just to, you know, pay your respects to them men like me, to be honest. You know, there's no day you wouldn't drive past and you wouldn't nod or something, like, you know. It's the lack of respect really to the people, you know.
Yeah.
But as you said, like, there's unfortunately 2 more names to go on the wall, and the sad thing is there will be more go on it. You know, some part of the coast will stick another name on a memorial somewhere over the course of the next few years, I presume. Like,
will they get Willie back? Hopefully they will.
I hope so, Damien. Yeah.
Weather's been bad. The weather's been bad.
The weather has been bad, and you know, going on past times. The longer they don't dive, or whatever the case may be, the chances are getting slimmer and slimmer, you know.
Yeah.
But please God to do, like, the 2 men can be laid to rest, and families can have closure, you know. That's the hard part. If someone isn't found, like, you've no closure, like. It's just sad.
Like, the idea of going out to do a day's work and not coming back, not having for the family not to be able to grieve at a graveside.
Tis poor. That's hard. You know, it's hard losing someone, but at least if you have someone to bury, you know, it's kind of closure. You can go, but please God now that he will be found. Like, it won't be from the lack of trying anyway to find him. That's one thing for sure.
Yeah. We'll encourage everybody to watch this programme tonight on TG Car, and it'll be repeated. And I know it sounds a bit strange to encourage people to watch a programme about fishing, but if anything, if people can I know a lot of people do know about fishing, but I believe it's been very well done, and just to get to know more about the fishing community and the fishing people and what drives people, it's just so important, isn't it?
Yeah, true. It's a way of life, I think it's fantastic. I wish people had the opportunities I had starting off, where you could progress and buy a boat and then move on and things like that. But rules and regulations and licenses and tonnages and quotas and everything has gone so hard now. It's a pity, really. I'd want to be incentivising people back into the job to see, that they can get the satisfaction I got out of it. I know loads of lads, they fish like they don't fish. They fish to provide for a family. That's what they do.
Shane, we'll let you get. We'll let you get back to sorting out that boat, Shane McIntyre. Mind yourself.
All right, Damien. Thanks very much for the shout.
And Shane is off to the funeral like a lot of fishermen are this afternoon over in Kilmore. Now, listen out to the Kinks Sunday afternoon. Is the Kinks Sunday afternoon going to be played on this programme or on Jeff's programme or one of the programmes later? If it is, text in the word holiday to 083 333 975. Now, that programme is on TG Car tonight at 9:30. Somebody just texted in. Brendan and Ardmore has texted, Damien, as the saying go, the sea takes its own, God rest them. Other people saying, can't understand why people are becoming more incensed about a commemoration ceremony than lots of other issues. We'll be covering a lot of other those issues in the next short while on this programme. One of the issues we're covering now is agriculture, farming, global warming. God forbid, Shane. How's it going? How are you, Kieran? How are you getting on?
Not too bad at all, David.
Just come into the microphone bit there.
Not
Kieran,
too bad at all.
Yeah. I know you're not used to using the microphone, but sure, we're giving it now a go anyway. Yeah. You're a rookie at this, aren't you?
Rookie, yeah.
A rookie at this. Kieran O'Connor, thank you very much for joining us, our farming correspondent and sports commentator on WR for so many years. Shane is here as well. Shane Fitzgerald, Young Dairy Farmer of the Year. From whereabouts? The Portlaw area? Is it Kilmac, Portlaw?
I'd be kind of halfway between Portlaw and Kilmeaden.
What's the townland?
It'd be Kilmaggy Moog.
Could
you spell that one?
Go on, I haven't. There's
a ring to that one. It's a John B. Keane.
I love going around and listening, and that's why I always ask about townlands, because townlands are so important, and they are the heart of where farmers are and where people are, aren't they?
Yeah. So it's called the High Road as well. So a lot of people remember that. I'm probably geographically closer to Kilmeaden, but my address would be Portlaw. So we've good land there. We're up in a bit of a height.
Tell us a little bit about the holding.
Yeah, so there's just about 92 hectares that's on the farm. So we're all dairy now, and myself and my dad are there. So we're spring calving. We'll be calving now from the 25th of January on. So in 3 weeks' time we'll be busy. So we just kind of keep things simple as possible. Really, we streamline everything, concentrate on the cows, and we're doing a lot of focusing now on the grass side of things.
We'll talk about the details about how you've actually managed to win this award in a little while, and about the future of dairying. Kieran O'Connor, we wanted to get you in to talk a little bit about the past and a little bit about the future in terms of farming and how it's going. And Waterford and the South East has such a great concentration of farming and such a great level of expertise. How do you think the last 12 months went for the farming community?
I think it's been a difficult year. Weather-wise is always a challenge for farmers out there. Obviously, the dairying has been literally the steady Eddie, and obviously over the last number of years has been the most lucrative of the enterprises. Beef went through a very difficult time, and everyone that's been well documented with the protests and whatever. Unfortunately, the whole beef scenario, the deck chairs are changing big time here, particularly with Brexit, with our dependent on the British market. Forestry, people are looking at forestry as an alternative. And of course, the sheep had a reasonable year. The one sector who did very well was the pig sector for once. But overall, I suppose the whole area of climate and sustainability, Damien, is the big word. Exporting as we are an export nation, we've only 5 million people. We depend on exports. So having that sustainability is one thing, but being able to prove it, and like what Shane is saying there, with his grassland management, soil testing, the water quality, there's a sustainable support advisory programme up and running. Cahill Summers in association with Glanby and Chogs in the Waterford area. The water quality is being looked at big time. Guys are looking at biodiversity, and they have to. Farmers want this to work, and I think there's been a kind of a campaign in different quarters knocking the farming industry. There's lots of industry. There's the transport, there's housing, there's energy. And last evening I heard on RT1 actually coming back in the car, data services, Amazon have 7 centres around Dublin alone, not providing services just for Ireland, that we're literally exporting, and they've 12 nationwide. And people are saying that this is an area that has to be looked at, because as regards carbon emissions and whatever, there's huge problems there that's not being looked at.
Who's knocking the farmers?
I think in general, and I think media in particular, I think have been very unfair to farmers. Now, obviously, in every walk of life, there's guys not doing it by the book. But you think, like a Shane here, Shane, of course, is a qualified accountant, was in college, went back to do farming. Shane runs an excellent enterprise. A lot of farmers, Shane is a monitor farmer as well at the minute, but Shane gets his soil tested, he watches the water quality, he's herd health, he's EBI. In other words, if you have a healthy, happy herd, grassland management as regards using protected urea, slurry with the trailing shoe, and all these areas that farmers, in fairness, everyone was guilty of not protecting the environment. Farmers are more aware than a lot of people think.
Is there an ignorance out there, Shane, among certain media commentators and others that puts this narrative that farmers are to blame for things? Or how do you feel about it? Like when you go out and you say you're a farmer, do people sort of, do you have to go on the defensive, or how does it work?
Yeah, no, it is hard. Like Kieran said, I was in college for 4 years in WIT, and a lot of my friends don't come from farms, and they don't really have any interest in farming. Like, so I see that everywhere. So I suppose it's up to us really. Like when I'm talking to my friends outside farming, I'm always trying to be positive and try and tell them what's actually going on, because a lot of people get their information now from social media. Like I'd be fairly involved now on Twitter, like, and there's a lot of farmers now are very positive on Twitter, trying to combat the vegans and the likes. So I try to portray a positive image, because a lot of the people who are bashing farmers, I suppose, they're getting brainwashed by all these, like say in media, all these big campaigns they had with the posters, different things like that. So I try to put up, say, positive images on the farm, things we're doing, and like realistic things as well, like during the calving season, what will happen. And I'm also passionate as well about trying to open up the farm to the public as well. Like, I'd like to bring people onto farms, bring schools onto farms and public. Because a lot of people think of farmers, they just think people think of farmers that spreading slurry on the road, dirty in the roads, working long hours, hard life. But it's not like that anymore. Like, we're embracing lots of new technologies, and like I'd say I have a good work-life balance as well. And a lot of younger farmers do, like, so people need to be made aware of that.
How old are you?
I am 29 now.
And do you see a future for yourself in farming? Oh
yeah, 100%. Like I was lucky enough. My dad, like, he invested in the farm over the years, and like only for him, like he like made it a viable future for me. Because I saw a lot of my friends who came from farms. They might have had maybe 100 cow farms, and they went to college, maybe got engineering and accountancy degrees, and they didn't see a future to go back to the farm. And they were getting their good pay 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and they were happy with that. But I could see like that wasn't for me. Like, I knew I had a future there. There was an income there for 2 families on our farm.
Tell us about the family.
Yes, I have. Yeah, my 2 parents are there. It's just myself and my dad involved in the farm.
What's your mum and dad's name?
John and Bernie.
Hello to you.
Yeah, so hopefully they're listening. I'm not sure if they could be working.
Someone has to
keep the farm going. My sister then as well, so she's a year younger than me, and she works in Lambia in Kilkenny. She's done the same course as me, and she's a qualified accountant now. So
okay. Kieran, I want to delve into this a little bit deeper in a second, okay? Stay with us. Now, welcome back. I am talking to Kieran O'Connor, who is our farm correspondent, and also to Shane Fitzgerald, Young Dairy Farmer of the Year. We're looking at the year gone by, we're looking at the state of farming, we're looking at the personal thing about work-life balance. Just on work-life balance, Shane, how important is that for you?
Yeah, it's really important, because like I would have a lot of interest outside the farm as well, and I suppose it is one of the reasons why I would have one young dairy farmer of the year, because like you kind of as great a herd as you want, but like if you're not getting time off the farm, it's not going to be sustainable as well. So you need to get involved outside the farm. So I'm heavily involved in Mockra as well. Like, I'm the chairman of my own local club of the Young Farmers Group in Waterford. I'm on the Ag Affairs Committee in Mockra as well, and I'd say I definitely I like travelling as well. So I do.
You're mad busy.
I know, yeah. So like that's the way that's the importance of the farm, that way to streamline everything and to give myself time off the farm. And like a lot of young people do want time off the farm as well. So
yeah,
like you work hard and you play hard. Like, farming doesn't have to be all hardship. It'll be busy in the spring, but you can be quiet other times of the year. Like so.
Shane's story, Kieran, is it reflective of the changes that are happening in farming?
Definitely, I think 2 things are happening. There's a younger generation getting involved. Guys are getting involved now because they want to. For a while there, during the Celtic Tiger, guys were looking at other areas. The guys who get into farming are I see are younger. They want to get involved. Number two, they're very well educated. They're doing it for the right reason, and they're open to education. And Shane, as I mentioned earlier, being a monitor farm, they listen to their advisor, both from Teagasc and from Glanbia and whatever. I'm just saying from a dairy end, but in general, guys doing farming now because it's the way of life that they want. But the options, as you say, having that work-life balance, be it once a day milking, the robotic milking, are all options that are out there for them as well.
Is robotic milking a reality?
Well, definitely. I for one questioned it big time, and there was a big about 10 years ago almost 10 years ago up at the Ploughing Lely had this big robotic milker. Down in Rathgormack alone, within a catchment area, Seamus Carney is the advisor down there, and I've done a programme a few years ago and went back there last autumn. It's flying now. There's about 8 or 10 farmers in a group with robotic milking.
How does it work?
Well, basically, the cow comes in and out when she wants to be milked, and there's a monitor on her. So when she comes in, if she's in heat, she's diverted one way or another. She walks in now when she wants to milk. It's like as if there was a loo that you just go in and out in your own time, as against coming in at 7 in the morning and out in the evening. So they're in and out in their own time.
So there's this type of advancement in technology, Shane. Would this look at freeing you up and helping you to make sure that you are, one, in a profitable business, but and secondly in a business that you want to be part of?
Yeah, well, it is the future, I think, probably down the line. It's a huge investment at the moment, but it does, again, you're not tied down to the farm at least twice a day. I know there is some people milking once a day, like Gillian O'Sullivan, won the farm of the year last year. She makes once a day, and a lot of people would swear by it now once they've started. But the robots, I suppose, they're still very time consuming as well. Yeah. It's a different type of work. It's more management and monitoring rather than the manual labour, but you still have to be there. It's
more high tech.
It's more high tech, but that's the way things are going. You have to embrace technology.
You mentioned earlier combat veganism. Again, this idea that there's a campaign out there that's going against meat, going against dairy.
Yeah.
That's difficult to combat.
It is difficult, but I suppose as farmers, that's what we should be doing. We have to let our voices be heard as well, and we have to be positive as well, just to combat the negativity.
And when you say combat, is there any way of embracing people's consumer changes?
I think Shane's point earlier, I think it's up to farmers and the industry to show what they're doing right, as against knock. The veganism, people are entitled to their opinion. But I think, as Shane mentioned there, a lot of people outside the farm don't realise the good work that's happening to producing that sustainable product. And the tillage sector, I think we overlooked it earlier on. What's happening there in tillage with the added value, obviously, it's again difficult years for tillage industry. A lot of us going from winter to spring corn. But the added value, the malting barley, the equine oats, the gluten-free oats, the organic oats, the milling wheat, guys can produce that quality product. And Flahaven's here on our doorstep. They have suppliers producing the best of oats, be it our organic oats, or genuine spring oats, whatever. But what I'm saying is there is a quality there, and people want Irish quality. And Glanbia are exporting gluten-free oats to the United States, but they want it from Ireland, not from Canada.
And the Chinese as well. The Chinese market is massive. The Asian market is massive.
Huge, and like we've seen with the whole area of the infant formula and what has happened with New Zealand milk, the Chinese delegations and people from the whole Eastern Bloc as such, they want Irish milk because it's off grass and it's up to us to manage that grass properly.
You're politically astute, Shane. I can get that from you. Like when you see Greta and you see Greta Thunberg and you see all this thing going on, how do you think it applies to you? How do you think environmentalism and this change, like in 10 years' time, are you going to be able to say you've managed change?
Yeah, well, I hope so, because when you talk, the buzzword now is sustainability. So that environmental is one of the three. You have financial sustainability, you have the social sustainability, and environmental sustainability. So, again, if we're really profitable and we're not managing our environment, it's not going to be sustainable in the long term. So, in 10 years' time, we're all intensive dairy farmers as well. We're going to have to manage our environment as well. Or else we won't be in business, basically. It's not going to last.
But it's not even being a case of won't be in business. There's a morality about it as well.
Yeah.
You want to be the guardians of the soil,
exactly,
the guardians of the future.
Exactly it.
Yeah, we'd like to leave the land in a better place for the next generation than we got it, really. I suppose years ago, even my father's generation, it was the opposite thinking. In his generation, they were getting grants to take out hedgerows to make these big prairies. Whereas now, we're getting grants to put in hedgerows. It's all changed around again.
It's gone full circle, So, and Shane mentioned earlier, I think, the point of soil testing. For years, fellas were putting out NPKs, pasture swards, 27, 2.5, 5, just putting out because they did last year. But now they're all actually soil testing. And Shane mentioned earlier, I think you soil test the whole farm.
Yeah, this year we soil tested every single field. So we know exactly what our soil fertility is. We know how much P's and K's, like phosphorus, potassium, nitrogen is in the soil. So then we don't overload it and just have optimum soil fertility for grass growth. Yeah. And we'll be embracing now, like as part of the Glanbia Teagasc programme, we'll be embracing protected urea, which means there's going to be less losses into the environment as well. It's more efficient. Low emission slurry spreading is another big one, because we use splash plates traditionally, and everyone knows about that. Like, that's another thing that the public and neighbours give out about, is the smell from the slurry. So with the low emission slurry spreading, it puts the slurry straight into the ground. There's no emissions at all. It's better for the farmer again.
And very little chance of runoff.
Very little chance of runoff again,
correct,
especially if it's spread at the right time of year. And like this time of year now, we keep out from our drains, waterways by 10 metres just for the first couple of weeks before the soils, before they are not too saturated. And then we're introducing clover into the grassland as well, which is not a good way. It fixes nitrogen, it's called, so you don't have to spread as much chemicals. So like all this is all going to help the environment.
Do you see a future, Kieran?
Definitely, and I think we're very lucky in Ireland, and I think people don't realise the important role of not everyone, but a lot of people don't realise the importance of the agri-food industry within the spin-off is just unbelievable. Not alone the farmers were involved, the people involved directly and indirectly in the industry, be it from the processors, from the food industry. I do, but I think it's up to the farmers. I think the farmers are more aware than most. They're the custodians of this whole area. It depends on them. But thankfully, we have a generation like Shane that want this for the future and want to leave the place in a better, and are very much aware of the environment and of the sustainability.
Kieran O'Connor, thanks very much for joining us.
Problem,
Happy New Year. Great to see you on your feet, and you'll be back
there. I'll be back for the league.
Back for selection in March. Shane, thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks very much, Damien.
Thanks for coming in to us, and the very best of luck to you and to your family, and we'll talk to you again.
Yeah, thank you.